back to Practical Spirits Podcast. I'm your host, Tahim. My co-host here, Brother Rob. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. Doing well. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good, pretty good. Just, trying to stay sane and, just adjusting to all that's going on.
Right.
Um, relatively good day. I know I'm
hmm
looking forward definitely to our next discussion. It's been a while since we spoke, but how are things going on your end?
It's going well. It's going well. It's coming back, from the trip. hmm
But yeah, so I just on a much lighter note, you said you're traveling home, so I know you're an Ohio native, and
hmm
with the finals and everything, with the Lakers winning the finals,
hmm
the LeBron getting a title with the third team,
hmm
it's been done, but not by someone leading a team.
hmm
It's
hmm
been a whole discussion, and I don't want to spend too much time on it, but I just want to know what your thoughts are, being a Clevelander, an Ohioan. Um, what are your thoughts on the Jordan comparisons, or the fact that LeBron is the goat, King Goat, as Shannon Sharp would say. What do you think, or Goat James? That's what he calls him. Yeah,
Yeah,
what do you
yeah,
think? Because you're not the person to be a prisoner of the moment, and you
yeah.
definitely watched basketball actively in the '90s, I'm sure. So you
hmm
watched during the
hmm
Jordan
hmm
era. So what
hmm
what are your thoughts on that? Is LeBron James the GOAT?
It's funny you asked me this because I have a Lakers jersey. I have one of the a Lakers jersey, and I was wearing it when I was in Cleveland,
Mhm.
and had two responses. One response was the guy, he seen my jersey, he's complimenting the jersey because it's a jersey, it's the Kobe made
Oh,
jersey,
mm,
but it has also had this other design that's within it, and
right.
so that guy said, man, that's a nice jersey. He's like, that's a nice jersey. Then I ran across another guy jokingly. He says, you need to get you a. He said, I run with Miami, because LeBron left Cleveland. So
Mhm.
he said, yeah, he looked at his jersey. He said, yeah, I run with Miami. I said, okay. And so let's just take the comparison. Okay, the comparison for me is I look at it like this. Jordan right now is the GOAT to me. I'm gonna say that, the GOAT to me. But before LeBron retires, I believe uh he will at least, come to on the same levels he is, if not break it. Like I
Okay.
said, if he retires, I believe he will. Um, uh, and even Jordan himself says that. But at the same time, I believe LeBron will eclipse him.
Mhm.
Um, but it's still, me. I came up with Jordan,
Right.
but I'm a LeBron man, though. So wherever LeBron goes, I go.
Okay.
He went to Miami, I went to Miami with him. He went to LA, I went to LA with him. But right now, to me, my opinion, Jordan is still the ultimate winner. He's the ultimate winner. And I'm Cleveland born, Cleveland raised. Um, I'm Cleveland, so it definitely ain't no hate. And I'm pro LeBron. As a matter of fact, I don't wear nothing on my feet. It's a little joke, but LeBron's. That's
Okay.
all I wear on my feet, other than my work shoes. It's
Right.
LeBron. So, but if you would take right now, for one, I don't think the comparison is a good comparison because
Right.
you got two positions. You
Yeah.
got different positions.
Completely different.
You had different roles. So I don't like to make the comparison.
Right.
Um, I tell you what I do though. I get the same entertainment. I have the same anticipation when I see LeBron in the finals and the playoffs as I did with Jordan. I can say that I have that same anticipation. I have that same fire looking at the TV, and so I find myself fussing at LeBron like I did Jordan when he would miss, because you think they're supposed to make every shot. So my feelings toward them are the same. I'm just being real with you, but I don't think you could compare it. But I can tell you this: you will never see another forward like LeBron James, not for a long time.
Right.
He, as a matter of fact, he came and they made up a position for him. Think about it. Before him, there was no such thing as a point forward. Now you have point forwards. You see what I'm saying?
So
As
you
it relates
wouldn't
to
say, I. What about? I think because of Jordan, it was eclipsed. But I look at the
Mhm.
first true point forward. I look at Scottie Pippen.
Yeah. Scotty, yeah, I can agree with that. I could go with that. Scotty
He just
was.
he just
I agree.
wasn't.
I forgot all about Scotty. Forgive me, y'all Bull fan. I forgot all about Scotty. He was the first point forward. I say he was and then LeBron came in because of his size, because of his
Right.
stature. I mean, yeah, Scotty was exactly the first point forward. I agree with that totally. He was.
Well,
And then I would go with I really, you know, I look at players who can play in any era. Now
right.
me, I say this. It's gonna be I don't know how many older people looking and gonna be watching, but I will say this. I don't think players like this one, Oscar Robertson. I know I'm about to get in trouble. I don't think because of the physicality of these players today, I don't think Oscar Robertson could play in this era and do what he did then. It's too physical. You got point guards like, come on, Westbrook,
Westbrook. Yeah.
built point guards.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's built, stacked like little halfbacks. I don't think, but I do know that if you take like a Shaq or a
Barkley,
LeBron or Barkley and
Dr.
a
J,
Jordan,
even before
Dr.
Dr.
J,
J,
and you put them back in their era, I
yeah,
believe Jordan would have averaged about 60 points a game other than 30.
right,
You know what I'm saying? I
right.
just believe now because you have the road, think about it. Back when Russell and Chamberlain, right? They had their first wins, what was 11 teams at one time? It was only like 11 teams. You see what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Now you think about 30 some teams, you
No
got the
3-point line.
travel,
Yeah,
no
no.
3-point line, now you got the travel, you got the you understand what I'm saying? You got to go here and there. And I just don't think certain players. Now, I really think because of the way, and I'm going off the player like Pistol Pete and things like that,
Hmm.
because of his skills with the ball, I believe that he could play in this era. But a lot of the players that the ones before us talk about, I don't
Right.
believe that they will be able to handle it. It's too
And not a lot of
physical, man.
not a lot of
It's
them.
too physical in this
Yeah.
era. You
I could
know.
think like I mentioned Doc, and this is before I wasn't watching basketball. I was too young
Mm-hmm.
when Dr. J was a Sixer. Just looking
Mm-hmm.
at just the way he played and looking at him at the
Mm-hmm.
Rucker, I could think as well a George Gervin from that time.
Mm-hmm.
I could see
Mm-hmm.
George Gervin, the Iceman, transitioning through eras as well. But
Mm-hmm.
with you being Ohioan, I would be
Mm-hmm.
remiss. I'm born in Philadelphia,
Mm-hmm.
Pennsylvania, University of Pennsylvania Hospital to be exact. And there was a
Okay.
guy
Okay.
when I was getting ready to graduate high school from
Uh-huh.
the suburbs of
Mm-hmm.
Philly. He went
Mm-hmm.
to a little school called Lower Marion High School.
Mm.
And this gentleman, he went straight to the league, had a
Oh,
rough start.
he's on the mount. He's on the Mount Rushmore too. I
But
I
and
didn't
I'm
mention
all right,
him. There
so
you go. Here you go. I
but
didn't
I'm
mention
just
him because
curious.
he wasn't in the conversation. But
I don't understand it. I don't understand it. I don't understand why when Kobe Bean Bryant
Mm-hmm.
why it's just a given that okay, I got Jordan. Now, what I'll say about Jordan, I didn't appreciate Jordan until well after he finished. When Jordan
Right.
played, I was never a Bulls fan. Never
Mm-hmm.
rooted for the Bulls.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think I did want them to beat the Jazz when they went up against the Jazz because I did not like
Mm-hmm.
watching the Jazz play, but it was great fundamental basketball. I didn't like the Spurs or the Jazz. I'm just, going to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
but during that time, I was a Penny Hardaway guy. I was a Grant
Okay.
Hill guy, and
Okay.
my Sixers were horrible during this time. Even when I first started watching basketball, Barkley was playing for the Sixers. So as much of a powerhouse as he was, and a great player that he was, we just didn't make it anywhere. So I watched I watched basketball. I watched a lot of basketball, probably more than what I do now. Definitely a lot more
Mm-hmm.
than what I do now. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, like during the Jordan era, it was
Mm-hmm.
definitely Penny Hardaway for me. Penny Hardaway was my favorite player.
Mm-hmm.
You talk about that was the first because my mom didn't buy those expensive sneakers for basketball
Mm-hmm.
players. That was the first pair of shoes that I actually saved up money to buy. I was 13, working a job selling cotton candy at football games, and I had enough money. I paid $135 for the penny ones, the ones that they
Mm-hmm.
they're foams now, but I just had to have them, and I love
Mm-hmm.
Penny Hardaway. I wanted the Magic to you know, win it all up. And that Magic team, not just Penny, but I'm talking Penny, Shaq, Dennis Scott,
Mm-hmm.
Grant,
Mm-hmm.
Nick
Mm-hmm.
Anderson, like that team was crazy. But
Mm-hmm.
so I wasn't really a big Jordan guy, but I I was actually a fan of him during the regular season because when
Mm-hmm.
it came to the playoffs, I would miss a playoff game. All right, well, let me make sure I watch the last game. I would know what's gonna happen. So if it was, he usually, I mean, he didn't go to game seven. So in six, I
Mm-hmm.
would, out of six games, I catch maybe two to three most years. And I remember they
Mm-hmm.
played the Sonics. It was a little more exciting to me when Rodman was in the mix, but I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't. So I'm not like a Jordan stan as they call it, but just looking objectively, I don't really see it's different types of players and it's different classes. You know what I'm saying? It's different
Mm-hmm.
classes of players. And with Jordan,
Right.
you could definitely put him in any era. I think that a younger Jordan playing now without
Mm-hmm.
the hand checking and the abuse that he would take in the
Mm-hmm.
paint,
Mm-hmm.
going up against the tough. I mean, I'm in the East. I'm not even looking at the playoffs, but
Mm-hmm.
in the East, going up against the Knicks,
Mm-hmm.
the Pistons, just
Yeah.
the punishment that he would take. I just know that he, just putting him in any era, and then you have players that pattern themselves after Jordan, which he was an inspiration for a lot of basketball players. Some of my favorites, Allen Iverson. Now this is towards the end of Jordan's career, but Allen Iverson coming out of Virginia
Mm-hmm.
and going to Philly, that was just the greatest thing to me. He was one of my favorite
Yeah.
players that I would watch for. So I
Yes.
didn't follow him to other teams. I
Yeah.
didn't care about in Denver or anything like that. But as
Mm-hmm.
far as being a Sixer fan, I was there. But
Right.
I just find it interesting that in this conversation, like
Mm-hmm.
I hear a lot of people go through their top five, top three, or whatever, and they say, okay, well, Jordan's gonna catch. I mean, LeBron is gonna catch Jordan, but I don't really see I don't see it personally where he has surpassed Kobe. I
Mm-hmm.
think now as far as a comparison, the comparison, Jordan and LeBron, they're two completely different types of players and not
Yes.
just the size. A better
Mm-hmm.
comparison is Jordan and Kobe as far as
Yes.
the style of play. Really,
Same
even
position.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so even if LeBron and Pippen were both point forwards, I wouldn't compare them.
Mm-hmm.
Pippen an extreme talent, but I don't think he had a very high basketball IQ. But
Mm-hmm.
thinking about basketball IQ, and this is kind of where I fault LeBron as well, because LeBron IQ. I mean, I heard him in a couple of post games. He'll break down a 3 minute stretch. He'll
Mm-hmm.
tell you specifically, well, yeah, well, AD was out here, he had to, he kicked it out and came around, the shot was
Mm-hmm.
blocked, and then we got they got the steal, we ran it back, had to get, and he's telling it's just amazing, just his mind, and
Mm-hmm.
how much
Mm-hmm.
he pays attention to the
The
game.
change.
If he
Mm-hmm.
chooses to do so, I think he'll be a great executive at some point. If he chooses to do
Yeah, I
it now,
believe. Yeah,
his
yeah.
career,
You can
I
see
would
him going that way too. You can see him
right. I see him
going
beyond
that way.
coaching.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
see him
yeah.
more
I mean,
of
he's
a
doing it now. I mean, you look at
right,
he has production, movie production stuff. So you already know that, like he said, he eventually will want to be an owner.
right,
So you already kind of see that,
right.
him going there now. So I agree with you. I
Yeah, and
agree
he,
with
he has a great basketball mind, and I would say, Jordan was a killer, or the killer instinct, as you
you. Mm-hmm.
said, as you would say. But
Mm-hmm.
as far as an executive role, it's nothing to really write home about. But that's just like working
Right.
a job. The best employee isn't necessarily a
Yeah.
good supervisor. You know
And
what I'm
that's
saying?
why I say a leader. That's why I say, now, there's, like you say, there's different categories. You can't compare them because there's so much you need to be. If you're going to say who the goat and who's not, it's so many categories you have to
Right,
compare.
right,
If you talk about the leader of a team, hands down, it's LeBron
right.
over Mike. You talking about the leader of the team? It's
Well, I don't
Kobe.
know.
I take Kobe over Mike because I'm talking about. See, you gotta look at it like this. There's different types of when you say leaders, are you talking about specific way of leading or are you gathering all of them? Because we know that the stats even to tell you when LeBron is off the floor, the point ratio plus or minus, it just tipsy. You see what I'm saying?
Mm.
Tipsy, tipsy. Think about it. Even when Jordan retired, okay, Scottie Pippen still led them to one game before the Eastern Conference playoff when that and I remember when they played the Knicks and they called that bogus foul on him.
Right.
So you see what I'm saying?
Well, see, and
Now,
with that, when I think about that, though, I look at it as, um, you know, players. It seems like players may prefer to even play with a LeBron over a Kobe or Mike, but it was their style of
yeah,
leadership
yeah,
and their style.
yeah.
So Mike
Mm-hmm.
being that driven, you look at
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the things, you could depend on him, but a lot of times it's the role players. I
Mm-hmm.
remember even not even actually watching them, but I remember Paxson hitting those shots. I remember Kurt.
Mm-hmm.
I remember Tony Kukoc. I remember some of these role players and what they were able to go on to do.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of an amazing thing to me. But when I just to go back, when I look at the comparisons, the Jordan and Kobe thing, it's interesting because I think as far as the size and athleticism, Jordan had that over Kobe, even though they were
Mm-hmm.
the same height. Jordan
Mm-hmm.
had a higher vertical. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
He was quick. Like
Mm-hmm.
if you look at a younger Jordan and just the way he would adjust throughout his
Mm-hmm.
career, adjusting
Mm-hmm.
shots and things of that
Mm-hmm.
nature. A lot of Dr. J DNA, I would see that in
Mm-hmm.
Jordan as far as the
Mm-hmm.
way he would finish. But he did a lot of things that you couldn't replicate. Now, when Kobe came into the league, Kobe came in what I deem to be the best draft ever. Some people argue different, but that '96 draft when you had Allen Iverson, Steve Nash, Kobe Bryant, I think Stoudemire was in that
Yeah, that
draft.
was a tough. Yeah, that was
You
a
can't
tough
go
one.
on that
That
draft.
was a
Stephon
tough one.
Marbury was in that draft.
Yeah, that was a tough
That
one.
draft was crazy. I even
Yeah.
you don't hear. I mean, he's not a Hall of Famer, but I know Keith Van Horn was making a lot of noise during that
Mm-hmm.
time. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of people in that draft. Kobe wasn't really mentioned high up there,
Mm-hmm.
and he came in, starting behind Eddie Jones playing for the Lakers. And I thought he
Mm-hmm.
was a bust. I mean, coming out shooting air balls, throwing the ball away. It just looked bad. but his work ethic, Kobe worked so hard and was so driven that he brought himself up. So I look at it almost like a 1A and a 1B comparing him
Mm-hmm.
in Jordan. So I think they're right now. I
I
believe
agree.
LeBron will surpass Kobe. Or I mean, if someone says that LeBron has passed Kobe, I don't, I'm not going to argue it. But I just think it's just odd that I don't really hear Kobe mentioned in all this. When a lot of people are saying
Well,
that, and they're not talking about. I don't care the amount of rings that doesn't do it for me. So LeBron retired today. I'm not gonna say, oh well, he only got 4 rings because you have great players that don't have any, and then you have players, like Robert Ory. Robert Ory has rings, but he's a more of a role player,
right, right,
great
right,
role
right.
player. Don't get me wrong, but so I look at those types of things, and I just think it's interesting. One of the things I can say, LeBron is definitely a more likable person, and he doesn't seem to be about him. He doesn't present himself to be about himself. He has to have
Mm-hmm.
a certain amount of
You have to. You
ego.
have
That
to. You
that's
have to.
that's there,
You have to.
but he
You
doesn't
have to.
present it like that. And not to say that Mike just presented that the arrogance is just stuff that you heard. And I know that if it's different. So just like some people say that LeBron, especially early in his career, he wouldn't have fared well in those during the '90s era, but I think that's kind of unfair to say because
Mm-hmm.
his style of play
Mm-hmm.
would be different. He would
Mm-hmm.
adjust, and if that's the case, I would say, well, how would Jordan survive in the social media age? If he was
Mm-hmm.
playing, during that time, how he would survive. But you liked his charisma. He
Mm-hmm.
stayed out of things. He didn't speak too much. He did a lot of things in the background that people don't know about.
Mm-hmm.
That he definitely did a lot of positive things in the background as well. But just as a pure basketball player, I would say that LeBron definitely seems to be the more likable person. You don't hear too many problems with his teammates. Some here and there, but for the most part, it's not like some of the Jordan stories that you've heard. So I think that's
Mm-hmm.
one of the reasons why.
Well, let me be honest with you. I believe that they be honest with you, there are some stories out there. I think they're waiting to be told though, as
Oh yeah,
far as players. I believe that
oh yeah,
LeBron. But see, when you look at as far as the mind wise, the mentality,
hmm,
Kobe is more Jordan
oh yeah,
when it comes to and I'm gonna tell you why I believe Kobe doesn't get, because Kobe was a victim of the Jordan era. He
right,
was a victim, and so when everybody was looking for the next, Jordan, even though the player was trying to be themselves,
yeah,
it was all about the next Jordan. And
right,
so, because Jordan's era was still so closely removed from Kobe time, think about it, they was on the
yeah,
same court together.
yeah, yeah.
Jordan won what, 2 championships with
While Kobe
Kobe.
was, yeah,
While, you see what I'm saying?
yep,
And
97
so
season, 98 season, yep,
that's right. And so that's why um, you always hear kind of Kobe name fade back, because he was a victim in that Jordan era. To
mhm,
where LeBron came, the name of Jordan was just in shoes. Now, yeah,
yeah,
you would hear it because it's basketball, he's the GOAT. But as far as actively in the era, LeBron came way after that. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, yeah. He did,
And so the only comparison that you even hear about LeBron to Jordan is, it's not never the play. It's not
right,
the play. It's always IQ.
hmm,
It's always the sell, the draw, right? The marketing. That's the only
right,
similarity. You really never hear the similarity about play
right,
from one play to other. Even to that degree, what do they say? LeBron is don't have the killer mentality, but
right,
they say Kobe does. You see what I'm
yeah,
saying? So Kobe is more like Jordan than that.
yeah,
And I just believe that he was a victim. It was still the remnant of Jordan around, even when Jordan left, and it was just Kobe. You got to think about it. You had to deal with Shaq too,
exactly,
because
yeah,
they said what? Kobe can win without Shaq.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? Kobe can
Mm-hmm.
win without Shaq. And so Kobe just was in the middle of, rocking a hard place. That's why I don't think his name is ever brought to the forefront like it had, because in that
And see
era,
that makes it
all
even
every
more. That makes it even crazier
yeah,
to me too, because
yeah.
looking at Kobe with this the first four rings that he,
Mm-hmm.
well, I mean the first three he won three with Shaq, two without
Mm-hmm.
Shaq, so he has a total of
Mm-hmm.
five. But
Mm-hmm.
coming in during the NBA during that era, and
Mm-hmm.
being I would say that Shaq is probably, he could be arguably the most dominant player that played in the NBA. Some people might say a Bill Russell, but as we said, that's
Mm-hmm.
a different time. But look at Shaq. I'm not saying that I don't even think he's the most talented or the most
Mm-hmm.
athletic center, but he
Mm-hmm.
was he was just dominant. Like what when Shaq was in his prime, what answer did you you didn't have an answer for Shaq.
And you know what's so funny about that? And see, this is where, not to cut you off, but I got, because we talk about Shaq. This is where I disagree with people that say Wilt was better than Shaq.
Oh,
And let me tell you why.
you gotta look at the competition for
You
one.
got 380 pounds, 16% body fat. Do you know that that's a brick wall?
Yeah,
Do you know when Will would listen? Kareem would have did better with Shaq than Will, because Kareem had that hook. It just is
yeah,
unstoppable. But you hear a lot of baby boomers and that they, what do they say? Will. And I said to myself, did you remember the playoffs when Shaq and them, when they was playing against Denver with Mutombo?
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
I just remember, you remember how, like, on NBC, they used to slow down, like when they go into the commercial break, they used to slow down to play before. And I just remember how they were showing Shaq down in that hole, and he was throwing that body in the Mutombo, man.
Yeah.
In the slow, it was so slow motion. He showed his lip, and his face was shaking every time he hit it. Now, if you look at the frame of Wilt Chamberlain, tell me, what is the difference? But see, what happens is, like we were talking about even in other topics before, the baby boomer, that's their man, that's their guy. So
Yeah.
they say, Will, they say, Will, you have a 360 to 380-pound brick wall. Come on, man, you talking about 16 to 20% body fat.
Yeah.
That's nothing but brick there.
Yeah, and
And
you got to look at who they were playing against as far
look
as the
who they were
centers.
playing
Like
against.
Shaq played against my favorite center, and I'm not saying that I necessarily put him at the top, but my favorite center of all time is Hakeem Olajuwon.
That's mine
The,
too.
the dream,
That's mine
like
too.
the foot, like actually small forwards in shooting guards have come to him to in his after his career to get tips, post moves, footwork, things like that. The dream, he went up
He was
against
the
them. He
most
had
athletic center ever up to this point to
yeah,
play in tennis shoes. Akeem Olajuwon
yeah, man,
was the most out of Wilt. I don't care who you get, Wilt, all them. When you
yeah.
look at footwork and you look at how he was the most athletic center ever to lay some shoes
Yeah,
on up to that
his
point.
shot selection, his
Shot.
versatility.
He did. Remember, he would
He's a
fake you about 4 times and dip
Hakeem.
in.
He just like LeBron is a
Mm-hmm.
point guard and a power forward's body.
Mm-hmm.
Hakeem is I'd say a small forward in the center's
Small
body.
forward in the center's body.
Yeah, yeah, and so
In the
that's
center's body.
I look at that like, okay, so take that point and look at what Shaq was up against. Mentioning even the David Robinsons that
Mm-hmm.
and Shaq was in the strong Western Conference as well.
Mm-hmm.
You had Mutombo in his prime.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at what he was up against, and Kobe still developed into such a great player.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
Jordan and LeBron, they came in, hit the ground running. You saw Kobe develop and work, and that improvement. I think that what hits home to me, and that's just more relatable to the average person, because it's like you see, it's almost like playing one of the NBA 2K games. If you build your character, you got to create a player. It started at a certain level, and as you go on further and further, they may have started at about a 70. And then you get them up to 86. You get a 70 to an 86. That's a huge thing, and so to see that, you see Kobe. I mean, even Iverson. Iverson came in. Nobody knew what to do with him. That was Jerry Stackhouse's team. Nah, not anymore. Not after a few games, and they started to build teams around him, which was something in itself. Because I think even Kobe said it one time, if Allen Iverson was 6'5" or 6'6", just imagine, you just it's just he was already unstoppable.
Look what he was doing at 6'1", 6'2". He couldn't have weighed no more but about 160, 170. I mean,
yeah, he took abuse. He was punished.
Now let me ask you this question: can you imagine taking Shaq out his era and putting him back there when it was only 11 teams? They stopped dunking because of Wilt. Do you know they probably would have banned Shaq from the league?
Man, yeah, I wouldn't watch the game. They'd be winning by 60, 70 points.
So my point is, to these people who keep saying Wilt, let's look at Wilt. Let's think about it. Kareem, as good as he was, but his money was what? On the outside.
Right.
Kareem wasn't a banger. He was not a banger.
He had a nice mid-range.
He had a good mid-range, and
he's not really a post.
He wasn't a post. He wasn't a post. You see what I'm saying? Okay. You take Wilt. Now, Wilt, of course, he's gonna look good when he the tallest man there. The second tallest man to him was Bill Russell. Yeah. You see what I'm saying? That's why I respect more what Bill Russell's accomplishments than Wilt Chamberlain's.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I see Kareem. A prime Kareem could fit in today's game.
Yes.
Today's game is that would fit, because he's more of a finesse player, a finesse big. He probably be shooting threes and everything.
Yes.
So yeah, but I don't.
And you know what? Something else. Let me give you something else. Shaq would get ate up in this time. Why? Not the offense, the defense. Because you got centers stepping out shooting now.
Yeah.
Look at Anthony Davis, Djokovic.
Yeah.
They can shoot now. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you would have to bring Shaq out of the paint now. You see what I'm saying? Shaq would get crushed. But then on the offensive end, so that's why they're trying to bring this guy Zion,
Yeah.
I know I'm hurt. What do you think? I'm gonna say, what do you think about him, Williams?
I get nervous. I'm nervous about him and his play. His body. Just the build and the way the game is played. I'm not
to me, I think for this day's game, I think he's a little bit overweight. I think he's a little bit overweight. Yeah. They tried to say that he went on a conditioning and lost weight, but to me, he looked like he got big. Now, you could fight it and say it's muscle, but I look, much as I've been around gym and sports, I know muscle, and that ain't as much muscle as what they say it is,
Yeah,
but I don't think him in that weight, maintaining that weight, will be able to hold up if he keep on that same scale for more than 2 years, man. I'm sorry.
I get nervous. for him, and people look at it like, oh yeah, these people make millions of dollars. These are people. I still, that's still a career. I look at it,
Yes.
God forbid, I hate to see like a Greg Odom type situation.
Yes.
I mentioned Penny and Grant. I don't want to see and their thing. Penny and Grant, of course, wasn't with that weight or size, but I look at Greg Odom's size already. When you're big, you already your body. That's not normal. That's not average. So your body. what you put your
It's
body
not.
through. That's a tough thing. But yeah, we're running into our time. I
Okay.
definitely
Okay.
wanted to definitely have a more lighthearted discussion, and
It was
it's fun.
good, man. It was good considering what I needed this. It was a good, relaxed conversation.
Right.
Um, what I was thinking about too as well, sir. I'm sorry about that.
No.
Lost my train of thought, but I really want us to dig into this subject of conquering fear.
Okay.
Because I hear it all the time,
Right.
conquering fear, and I'm asking myself, what is it that we have to conquer when we haven't been given that? Why, but that's a saying, conquering fear. But I just want to lead the people with that. What is it that we need to conquer if we haven't been given that? Why do we need to conquer it? You see what I'm
So
saying?
what I think, and we'll get more
Hmm.
into it, but
Hmm.
I would say that I think we are given that.
Hmm.
I just know it's not of God,
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
but it's
And I agree. I agree with you, Tahi. I really agree with you. But if we look into if we look into the really what the word conquers mean, do we have to conquer
yeah.
fear?
Not
You
yeah,
understand what I'm saying?
we have to deal with it, but we can't conquer we can't conquer what we've already defeated.
That's
To be
my
honest,
that's where I'm
yeah,
at. That's where I'm talking about. And
yeah,
so
we'll
I
get into
definitely
it.
wanted to.
We'll get into it.
Hmm.
So all right,
Yeah,
but let's
yeah.
wrap up.
Okay.
I'm going
All
to
right.
confirm our guest for Friday. What we can get into
Mm-hmm.
mental health. If she's not available, we'll move on into that. So we'll plan to meet
Yeah.
Friday afternoon, regardless.
Okay.
Thank
All
you all
right.
for listening. We want to do something a little
Yes.
different from time to time. We'll
Yes.
go to
Yeah.
the practical side and
Yeah.
speak to our souls as well. Just
Yeah.
speak. We're men, and it's good to just venture off now and then, and
Yes.
just balance. We talked about balance last time, right?
Yeah.
So
That's
yeah,
right.
so
That's right. That's
so
right.
definitely thank you for joining. Thank you all for listening. God
Mm-hmm.
bless, and we'll be talking.